Yo, 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 what's happening?
Yo, what up? What up?
I think we're still waiting on Aaron to. There we go. Speak of the devil, just arrived. Now, unlike those of us trapped here in New Zealand, Nick, I saw you were at Art Basel this last week. Brendan, did you make it out as well?
I stayed back and held down the MNTGE fort while Nick was in Art Basel.
I was gallivanting, apparently.
I saw.
No, yeah,
it looked sick.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was intense. It was like a lot of different people converged on Miami this week. It was quite it was really interesting. I've been there several times, and I think there was a big celebration last year of Web3, and it was a little bit over the top, like these massive events and big mentality. And then this year, it felt still really big and really pretty wild, but it was toned down. It certainly, I don't think it was as sort of over the top. But I did find an interesting thing happening where I thought some of the art collections in the art world, those shows sort of happened in their own areas, and then a bit more of the NFT community was in their own areas. Whereas I think the last year they were a bit more collaborative. This year it felt, I don't know, it felt a little more focused. It felt like there was a little bit more like a purpose down there. It wasn't just every single project out there throwing a party, as opposed to a lot of things that had a lot of intention. But one thing that I did find was an interesting bridge between what I saw on the NFT side and what I saw on the fine art side was that there was a lot of fashion things happening. Whether it was GMoney and 9DCC, he created a pop-up shop that allowed you to go in and live mint a 9DC squiggle that you got printed on your one-of-one t-shirt. And I thought it was really well attended. People seemed very happy with the execution. Also, Adidas did their Probably Nothing event where they were releasing some of their wearable stuff. Artifact was all over the place. A couple of the other wearable companies like DressX were there doing things. And there just felt like there was a sense of a real big emerging industry here. And so for me personally, it was very exciting to see, because that's a lot of the thesis of what we're building on the MNTGE stuff. So I think it was a great sign of what's to come in the next 2 years.
Yeah, it's kind of getting beyond that first stage of another collection of 2D generative PFPs into what the metaverse is really about. Really, is kind of taking the things that happen in the physical world and are real industries within that world and bringing them into the digital space, which is
exactly
fashion is exactly one of those things.
Exactly. And to see the way the design elements are evolving, to be able to how do they, I think, extend beyond the 2D image. And I think it's actually very interesting, from what you guys built from day one, to have characters and experiences and lore in a world where I think it has a lot more context to it, a lot more definition, 3D, 4D, whatever the word is, but kind of all fits very well together.
Yeah, it's interesting insights. I think not having been to Art Basel Miami before, but having been to a few of the different events over the course of the year, you have those which I guess like NFT NYC, which are very heavily kind of about the existing industry and those that are kind of already converted, and then you have ones like Art Basel where it's kind of an intersection of existing kind of creative art forms with this new emergence. And in that sense, to your point around the kind of crossing the divide with fashion, do you think that's because, I guess, in terms of we look at the rollout of Web3 technologies and how we bring different communities, different subcultures into this realm, fashion is kind of the simplest one for people to wrap their heads around?
Absolutely. I think fashion, music, things that touch pop culture, things that appeal to that bridge us all and bring us all together. I think that's 100% true. And I think that it's just, everything has its moment to get I don't want to say hype, but everything has a moment, right? And I think right now that lens is really on digital wearables and on fashion. So I think that is a great moment during this kind of quiet bear market. It's having its moment. And I think it's something that's going to like appeal beyond maybe some of the core Web3 early adopters and might onboard a new audience or expand an audience. I think one other point I'll make, which is interesting, is that Art Basel's, I don't know what but it's pretty decadent, right? It's definitely like a loud event, and there's a lot of big brands and Audemars and Moet Champagne, like they're really out there flexing. But what was interesting, and I think an upside to the market we're in right now, is that last year you had these obscene FTX events, and you had these like massive like these experiences, and although they were fun, obviously that wasn't there this year. Like obviously, like you're at this, and so I think you saw a little bit of an end to the nonsense, a little bit of the bullshit that it was toned down, right? So you might not have had that extra crazy VIP or lounge experience, but I think it was just more personal, and really good builders were there.
But I think whenever you introduce some game-changing new technology, people are going to see how far they can run with it, and the outcomes, as we've seen, are not always the best. But then it's those processes that really refine us and bring us back to, okay, what are the core levels of engagement that we come back to? And I think, as you say, fashion is something that everyone can relate to, everyone likes, everyone can engage with at their own level. So what better time to launch a Web3 fashion brand?
Yes.
I think it's interesting too, when you look at, on that note though, when you look at technology, I think it's interesting of what you saw Artifact did is they got Nike to use that technology that was their pride and joy, and they launched it in the moment. So I think that was interesting to see from afar, is how they disrupted Art Basel with technology. I think was a really interesting thing, because Nike has kept that auto lacing shoe technology really close to the vest.
Yeah, you should explain that in more detail, just for people who don't know.
Yeah, totally. That comes from Back to the Future with the auto lacing shoes, and that was a moment where in the movie he puts on the shoes, and that auto lacing shoe was the moment that everybody was like, I have to get that shoe. Nike refused to make that shoe because they didn't know how to do it for years and years and years, and then finally. I think it was maybe 2015, something like that. They released the Air Mag that had the auto lacing shoe technology. They put that in a couple of other sneakers since then at a really high price point, but have really, really kept that technology near and dear to their research and innovation. And so I thought it was really interesting where they leaned in and they said they let Artifact touch that technology, and that's a big step. That's a big step for the Web3 community, and it's a big step for just the digital fashion space, because it is a real testament to putting top tech with up and coming Web3 tech. I think it's really cool to see that come to life in that way. And like Nick, you were saying with GMoney and his 90 DC, like that's again like a really cool tech, and it's done in a really cool way, and I think it's super cool to see this tech infused with fashion.
Awesome.
I agree.
Now, I know a few people are eager to understand the relationship between FLUF World Non-Fungible Labs and MNTGE. So let's delve into that a bit. I think firstly, maybe we can talk to, I guess, more just the commercial relationship. Actually, Aaron, did you want to speak?
Or should we talk about our background? Aaron, you tell me. Do you want to talk about our history, or do you want to talk about our future?
You go. Let's go history first.
I will say that history-wise, I was sitting in my house in 2021. Was it? And I got a text from someone who said, "Hey, have you seen the FLUF World Mint? It's live now." I hadn't, and I jumped on. And I fully was into it. I aped in. I think I might have minted like 20 fluffs at the time. So and some of my friends, Sean Neff, said they went hard. I think they minted like 100 plus of them. But that said, I was an early collector then, and I was pretty captivated by the fact that I thought it was different. I thought, hey, especially. And this is why I'll get to MNTGE, but especially where, you had this ability to sort of change the NFT and to swap out the background or add music. And I hadn't seen that. I mean, it might have been happening, but that was the first time I'd seen it. So I was struck by it. And I had to, even long before we kind of launched, we're launching what we're doing, I was thinking about how can you change these characters and add features to them, and maybe they, what do they happens when they come to life and when they're wearing things and things like that. But I then made it my mission to get to know the team. I was connected to Aaron right after that. We built a good relationship. I've worked around a lot of talent in my career. Most notably, worked very closely with Snoop Dogg for a long time. It led to us digging in and working on some ideas together around the boroughs and things that exist in the greater FLUF world, and things like that. And we built a great relationship. And I think Aaron, some of the insight I was offering from being in Los Angeles and in music, about how there could be other ways to collaborate on music, or potentially with other brands and talent. So we just dug in, and I saw you guys expanding, and you guys were very gracious. I think you liked it, and we created an advisory partnership, and I did that. Been doing that for a while. Aaron, team have had weekly calls for a long time, and I've been playing with an idea for a long time, with Brennan, who's on the call, and also our third partner, Sean Wotherspoon. And Sean is a top tier artist, incredible designer, just a world-class thinker. And I saw what he was doing as a designer, as a sneaker designer, and really changing the game. And I saw his what he'd built with Round 2 with his partners on selling secondary sneaker product, and also collecting vintage, and it all kind of like clicked together around this idea, around the idea of wearables, and also not just wearables, but how do we create future digital product? How do we then even think about what are some real world extensions of that product? So as I was putting together the team here, my first call was to the team at the FLUF World Non-Fungible Labs, and I pitched the concept and asked if they could help us build it. And what's important to me is that whatever we do has real strength and safety behind it, and smart contracts. And I don't think that there's a lot of teams that are as good at building as you guys are. So, I think because of the relationship, and Aaron, you can jump in whenever, but that you guys agreed to do it and became very embedded in the project, and obviously with that becomes a lot of strategic collaboration, where I think that a lot of what we're building will have very seamless integration into the characters and the worlds that you're building. But on a very high level, the technology, a lot of what's being built is being built by the developers and the engineers on the back end for our contracts by the FLUF world. How's that, Aaron? Is that good?
That was good, man. I think like the only thing I add to that is like we obviously get hit up a lot for collaborations and things like that, and while we're open metaverse maxis, we only have so much time that we can kind of dedicate things to, and when we had the conversation first about MNTGE, I think the thing that stood out for me was the focus on, absolute focus on producing something that was quality and that was differentiated. If you look at the team, they obviously know their stuff and they're deep in the culture of fashion. The product, it's something that I haven't seen anyone else trying to do before, and I think it lends itself really, really well to becoming a digital property, because as I've said 1,000 times, people will be sick of my repetitive nature on this thing, but I think it's so typical of why we decided to go in on this with you guys was that great stories and great narratives are the most important thing to creating great content. And the thing about fashion is you've got lots of elements, like we talked earlier, that are really kind of interesting for bringing into digital spaces. But one thing that vintage has above all of that is the story and the history behind the clothes, and that enables us to be super creative as a team in how we execute those stories and bring a narrative to those pieces, to do things that you couldn't do in the physical world and give it a real genuine purpose for being in the digital space, being in the metaverse, beyond the kind of standard cool factor for fashion. So that was really appealing, and to have the confidence from the MNTGE team that they could literally probably talk to anyone in the industry with their contacts, to have the confidence that to choose us to build with and to partner with, and even to go a step further into being co-owners of this company together, I think is going to be a start of an extremely exciting long-term relationship to push the boundaries of fashion in the metaverse.
And I'll add to that too. And also, can you? I don't know if possible, Alex, if you could add Brennan back in. I think he got rugged, or he has great service. But so the other thing that's interesting to me is when we first connected it was in the height of the pandemic, and you guys were essentially landlocked. And at the time, I was seeing all of this really interesting engineering development coming out of New Zealand, and I remember being like, what's in the water over there, right? And you kind of gave me a number of reasons why, but what's interesting is that we talked about this a long time ago. You were talking about really where you see where we are on Web3 and with some of our worlds we're building versus where we're going to be in the future, and one of the things we talked about is where one could see a future of a lot of this fashion wearable stuff, where ultimately obviously we'd like to see some of the product we're building immediately integrated into your into your lore and wearable. And I've seen some stuff which looks super rad. I just can't wait to show it. But also, like, where do we see it in real life on a runway? Like, do we see futuristic materials projecting the designs that we're creating? Do we see some of the designs that we're creating come to life through digital extensions? And I think that's already being done through filters, and we have some of that stuff, whether it's through Snapchat or your own applications. But I'm talking about like actual, like, kind of real world, which to Brennan's point about Nike utilizing the laceless shoes, like what can be built and what are that product and by the way, I'm not trying to create the expectation that we're launching some new crazy futuristic project that's going to be worn in real life, because we're not. But I think the thinking there.
what we discussed, which is something we definitely want to do, is like put that blended reality experience into mainstream fashion. And I had this conversation with Sir Richard Taylor over at Weta Workshop about like how could you take something that was only possible in the metaverse and make that, because we had that conversation to begin with, like, let's let our imagination run wild. Physics don't apply in the metaverse, and so clothing doesn't have to conform to the laws of the universe in the same way as it does in the physical world. But we went back and did the reverse, which was like, imagine if we came up with this crazy thing, how could we actually put it on a runway? And I think that would be a really fun thing for us to do with this project, is to bridge those two worlds and connect real to digital in that way.
Aaron,
Absolutely.
you said that. I was gonna say, Aaron, you said that on the very, very, very first call that we ever talked, and it's something that's resonated with me though, and it's something that from every designer that I've sat with on this project, it's been so fun to be like, okay, what do you want to design in that physics don't apply? And seeing where their head goes is so fascinating, because it's a true unlock, and it also, I think, is going to start to impact the physical clothing that people design, because when you start to tap into that and start to break the rules and then try to reverse engineer that back into the physical, I think you're going to start to see some really, really impressive things. And I think it's exciting for what we're doing, is how we can push the boundaries and then look at what are the real world applications, because we're designing without limits.
Yeah, totally.
And to highlight, I think, to what you're saying, Brennan, so what we're doing is, I mean, we have our first product dropping on December 14th, which is essentially our mint pass to a small but what we want to be active community. From there, and from there, that'll grant access to Sean Wotherspoon's first collection, and that's where we get really elaborate with the designs and sort of, and again, we'll start to showcase some of that product as we get closer. But then the process has been similar to some other projects I work with, but we're onboarding other designers who I believe are really credible. At least Brennan and I are big fans of. Some are already advisors, and others are are collaborators, and we bring them through, and they come to the Sean's vault, which is over 4,000 pieces of items he's collected, or he's purchased, or we go and we source them. And it's this credible thing about, like, what we say is, in the future we're the past, and what we're seeing is this, this moment that vintage items are having a massive moment, whether that was helped by COVID, or it's just a choice we're making to be more sustainable as humans. But it's, it's crazy how many of these items that we've discovered that are futuristic, in a sense where, like, potential zippers and buttons and ways people have created items are they've faded away, and they don't recreate them in fast fashion these days, and we're kind of looking at those items for inspiration. So so we're going to continue to onboard new I would say designers and artists to create sort of future assets and things like that, but then there'll be elements of some actual real world ways to purchase some of these items as well.
Yeah, and I think that point about, like, looking back a little bit at what has been created and how you can kind of, because there's a lot of brands out there that you could choose from, but some of them just feel like they were made for the metaverse. There's certain things that they brought about inside of their design aesthetic at the time that just kind of screams, use me for something interesting. We've got some cool stuff coming, I think, in that vein.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I'll say one of the things that meant past you for any questions, like, these collections, some will be small and probably very tight for the community, but a lot of them are broad. So, and those ability to purchase those items and those wearables, and even those some of the brand building characters in those worlds, that's going to be still available to a broader market. But
yeah, I think that's an important thing to get out here, is that this kind of MNTGE brand is we see it as a premium kind of product in the marketplace. But like everything that we're building, we want to make sure that there are layers of access points for people. And as we start to go into the more immersive spaces and have these kind of items become a signature, I guess, for our personality there, making sure that we're able to, we talked about earlier in the I think in different spaces about the idea that vintage clothing, especially ones that has provenance and stories, are a singular thing. They sit in Sean's vault and not many people get to see it or experience it. But one thing we can do with making them digital is expand the footprint of the audience, and have them, be appreciated in a different context, but like have that story extend to a broader audience. I think is a really important part of what we're trying to build here. And so making sure that we do cater for audiences across the spectrum is really important, but acknowledging that the general direction of where MNTGE fits in the overall Futureverse ecosystem is definitely as a premium product.
Spot on. Spot on.
Yeah.
And again, as I think interoperability with the characters that you've already established, and also operability with broader universes, and again, I like to say this now because I like to wish it all into existence, but integrations with some of the biggest games that we've all grown up with, whether it's Grand Theft Auto or Call of Duty. Like I'd love to see collaborative wearability within those worlds as well. We want to break the boundaries. We want to open those doors up and figure out how these digital items that we can prove ownership over can extend into other universes as well.
Yeah.
I think digital wearables as a whole, digital fashion is uniquely positioned to kind of drive that first stage of interoperability, especially as we look just currently between the kind of existing Web3 communities. I've said this multiple times, like I don't consider Bored Apes a competitor, or Doodles or whoever else, because we're all kind of on the same journey together and we all have the same goal, which is kind of driving towards mass adoption. But there is still this kind of inherent sort of tribalism between communities. And I think what's happening with the digital wearable space is it's bridging those communities a lot, so that you have these interoperable wearables that, we can't commit to interoperability with Bored Apes at this stage, but obviously that is the goal. And to be able to kind of release,
we can with our version of 3D Apes.
That's a very good point, in fact. Yeah. To be able to kind of bridge those communities and kind of draw people together and focus on the commonality as opposed to the differences.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even beyond it, right? It's like, it's not a secret because I announced it, I think a couple spaces ago, but like through my learning through this process, like, we decided, Sean and myself, to invest to create our own 3D replicants of ourselves. So we went through that process, and we went to I think it was Gentle Giant Studios, and stepped into a massive dome of 100+ cameras and took like full body rendered and I'm starting to see that those come back. It's crazy how long it takes to render, by the way. It's like, so, but I'm starting to see the comeback with the the details of like the hair on my chin is incredible. So I can't wait to be one of those people who get the opportunity to, show myself, bouncing on Twitter like a character, like a video game character, flexing, the craziest wardrobe that we designed that potentially it as Brennan highlighted earlier, doesn't have to fit within the boundaries of what we wear in our everyday lives, or take you to a different place, or elevate you, or make you grow. So these are the kind of things that it's just getting me so excited. Aaron, you got to do it, man. Got to step in the dome.
I'll do it next time.
I mean,
I'm up in LA.
Yeah, the other thing too is
they
that
have them down here too somewhere. Maybe we'll get one.
Yeah, you should get one. Everyone who works for you, that's your business card.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that when we start to release that, I mean, I put some of those images already on my Twitter, where you can see the day we shot that stuff. But I think for Sean, who is such an avid collector, like he's just now collecting the digital version of himself, that could be playable and he could pass down to the future generations of his family.
I think it's super cool though, because you have the ability. It's funny too, like since you started that, and then it unlocks all these other things that, now that you're digital, it's like, oh, you could make an action figure toy. Oh, you could, morph between yourself and your fluff. Like it unlocks this whole world of possibilities that it's really cool to think about. And it's really fun to think about how then the fashion plays a part of that. And both of them, whether it's your PFP or your fashion, both express how you're feeling that day. And it's cool to see that form of expression on people in all different ways.
Yeah, so I'm keen to, obviously we've touched on it at a high level, but I guess to get to some of the nitty gritty and really, as this is a specific spaces around vintage and fluff world, start to just tell people what they can expect a bit. Obviously, on an interoperability level, we've already touched on this, but just to reiterate, we're working to ensure that all of the MNTGE collection will be interoperable with our characters, especially as we kind of build out the in-game experiences and asset swapping. I know you've released the first stage of Allow List, which was exclusively for the day ones in your Discord, and if anyone listening isn't already in the Discord, by all means go jump in, get involved. You can actually see the invite link in I think one of the most recent announcements in the Fluff World Discord, or otherwise it's just discord.gg/MNTGE. But as we discussed before, Nick, be good to give a bit of clarity to the community as well, as we start approaching the day one mint pass actual mint event. We, as we've discussed, this is a very exclusive kind of mint and a very limited supply. But our heads would roll if we weren't giving some form of opportunity to our existing community. So we'll be opening another Allow List for Fluff and Party Bear holders. Allow those people that want to get involved with this to register to join that Allow List, and then we'll ensure that we'll release the full details on exactly how many spots that we have there. But considering the premium nature of this mint, I think that will slot perfectly into the current total supply that we have outlined.
Yeah, that's spot on. So we've the Discord, again, be very careful in any links that you ever click. So make sure that you're getting there through the the links, whether it's on Fluff or on our direct Twitter. And then we have a very small group of what we call day ones who joined up on the MNTGE Discord very early. So we've given them a temporary time to sign up and kind of qualify their wallet and all that kind of stuff. And then to your point exactly, the broader Allow List will go into effect. Brennan, when do we plan to give the?
We'll send that out. Yeah, we'll send that out probably tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Pacific, and then it'll run through Friday 11:30 p.m. Pacific.
Great.
Cool. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to touch on before we open it up to questions from the listeners?
No, I think that's good. I think I'd love to have a couple questions, but that's probably, I'm sure there'll probably be some questions that come up, or we can just get granular when we kind of message it on socials.
Yeah, perfect. Mometa.
Hey guys, how you doing? All right, my question, very short and to the point as always. With MNTGE being a very specific genre, it's vintage, and everything that's moving into the futureverse needing to make sense, can we expect this style of clothing to suit, say, the party bears? Can we expect maybe those party boxes, those party packs that are coming, and the party bears with Beastie Bears maybe being something we could look forward to?
I think that's a question for you on the FLUF side, because I will say on the MNTGE side, like for us, the stuff that we're creating, I think is just very beautiful and very very iconic in a sense that the details, what we wanted to establish, that anything that we're designing is really, really, really intricate. Like with Sean is he's an artist, so for him, he wanted every button and every seam to be shown, and it to be as reflective as if it's as true to life of this iconic item as possible. But what happens through digital interpretation and through the metaverse, that's open to interpretation. So there are some mechanics and some tools here that'll allow these items to have, I think, a lot more futuristic elements to them. But as to the experiences within certain characters, like with certain party persons like that, I think Aaron, I would leave that to you, but I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, can I just reiterate that question again?
Yeah, can you re-ask the question?
Yeah, just with the last few AMAs, it hasn't been quite clear exactly how the fashion interoperates with the actual content layer itself. So more if we get an idea of where we would see it, because the Beastie Bears, well, they've been on the roadmap for a long time. And then you look at the style of fashion, the genre, where this vintage clothing comes from, and it seems like they would work well together. Is there any clarity you could give us regarding how it will actually be used in a specific way?
Well, I think the base layer of functionality is that you can equip it within our digital worlds. And so if you have a FLUF or a party bear, for example, and you're in, say, the Burrows, you could go into the wardrobe and put this on and hang out in it.
That's my question. Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Cheers, mate. And thanks for reminding me about Beastie Bears. I need to chase those guys up and see what they're up to. Any other questions? No. All right.
We gave great detail. We're good.
Yeah, exactly.
It's unusual for our community to not ask questions.
I think what is it? I'm part of the community. So like I very much am part of the community. So I want to celebrate the community, but I do want to bring something a little different. I think what you guys have done an amazing job is like you continue to create an immersive world, and I think like character building and storytelling, and I think what we've done in the past is we've dabbled with music and we've dabbled with some of the sort of other like features that can it kind of heighten the experience, and I think as we go into this world of what we're doing on the MNTGE side, we want to do that. We want to continue to do that and evolve that. We want it to be something that might be something that you want in real life, and you can have your digital representation and you flex it. But also, ideally, we can gamify that enough and create enough that it also might, create, broader experiences, to the point of the question before, that is beyond wearing it. Like maybe it does, power you up. Again, these are things that we're working on, but what can it do to enhance your experience in real life and in the digital platform? And also, look, like, let me break it down for you. Do I want to have people waiting in line or experiencing something in real world through some of the real world product we're doing? Absolutely too. It's like, how can we merge it all together?
Yeah, I think there's lots of fun things we can do, especially in the vintage space, and even with the personalities. If you're already a collector or you're in the vintage scene, I think that being part of this community has its benefits just on that side of things. Irrespective of what we can do with the content and what utility we can give it inside of the worlds and stuff like that. Just being kind of part of a community that's into that scene, and being able to kind of connect with the players in that scene, I think is going to be a big part of what the Mintage Pass is all about.
Absolutely. By the way, I do see you have FutureVerse in the audience. I got to give a shout out to you, man. You are one of the best. I love your play-by-plays. You go in, and you're pretty. You nail it. Sometimes a little bit, not all, but most of it. So a big shout out to FutureVerse. Or is that FutureVerse? No, that's actually you guys. That is actually no. That's you guys. Sorry, FutureVerse is you guys. No, the FutureVerse pod guy. He's amazing. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah,
FutureVerse incredible. Pod.
Yeah. Shout out to FutureVerse pod. No, of course I know FutureVerse. How funny.
He is actually here. As I scrolled down, I can see him.
He's here too.
Working.
Oh, yeah. He is. Shout out, Gerry. Yeah, and then also, I see Shara. Like, she's the best. So shout out to Shara. Like, I see you out there.
lurking.
We had
Jesse.
Yeah,
we got
amazing.
Jesse
We had
here with a question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Hey, hi. Thanks so much for bringing me up here.
No problem.
So I've tuned into each of the Mintage AMAs that have happened. I love the idea of vintage clothing coming into Web3. I hit a very specific audience. So I'm proudly a part of of the FutureVerse universe with Drug Receipts. I work with Arlo Eisenberg on the project Drug Receipts, which is this apparel brand / media brand with a long history behind it. But also before that, I worked in music and sort of more cultural marketing side of things. And I'm also a vintage collector. I've gone to round 2. I've been really into like the streetwear scene, vintage streetwear scene. So I love what I'm hearing from you guys as far as like sort of connecting these different branches of culture. You have Web3, then you have augmented reality, you have digital collectibles, and then you have things that have, historical. Oh, sorry. I hope I didn't get rugged. A call that came in.
Not quite.
You did? I didn't. Okay,
we just
good.
missed the last part. We just missed the last part.
Oh no. Okay. So what did I say? Okay. So yeah. So I love seeing like sort of this undoing of this Rubik's Cube of how do you bridge these different departments together, whether with, augmented reality and clothing or digital collectibles or cultural and significant pieces of history. This is a whole rabbit hole that we can go down to. But my bigger question is, what's the legacy or what's the impact you're hoping to have in culture by diving into these kinds of spaces?
I love that question. I mean, you kind of hit all the marks, right? You've been around too. You're part of the FutureVerse. Like I think you're spot on. A perfect demo. So I am I've been a big advocate for Web3. I love what NFTs have done for our ability to own our digital footprint. I love that the way we can play with art and entertainment in NFTs. We're also all big fans of fashion, of streetwear, and of art on our team. And everything that we've seen that's being built so far in terms of, I guess, wearables or things like that has taken a really interesting approach to sort of how do you build for the future. It's very couture driven, like magical and things like that. And I think there's a place for that. And I think things like that. But what inspired us was these items that already exist in the world. These vintage items, which I think I've said it many times, but they remind me so much of NFTs in the sense that they have a rarity, they have a provenance, they have traits to them. Is it certain rips or fades or and things like that? And I think these items, they're collectibles and they can be kind of celebrated by having an on-chain representation of themselves that help track the history of that shirt, that go with that shirt, that can be traded with that shirt, that can potentially be just so the ledger that confirms it, just much like a classic Rolex watch and how that's been established. So there's a couple things we want to do. One is we'd like to start to sort of bridge that representation of what that shirt is through the NFTs, through digital collectibles. But also, we think that as we evolve and we continue to go deeper and deeper into the metaverse or to the digital experience of ourselves, like, we're going to want to represent ourselves more accurately. And we want to design for that. And we want to help onboard the designers that we really appreciate to give them a platform to do that. And so I think, for us, MNTGE is it's that. And again, it's also, there's a reaction to fast fashion here and sustainability and, how can we represent ourselves and not be constantly buying new things and, putting them in a dumpster. So I think those are a couple ways we want.
I think in that point earlier about like leaving a legacy of the culture and history behind the items and expanding the audience that can participate in that. That's a big part of the mission is, the values of vintage collecting that Nick's talking about appreciating the art, about being more sustainable, about building communities around the clothing. All of those things are very Web3 kind of centric values, but being able to take a story and enshrine it, create a legacy that will extend into the digital worlds for these unique items, I think is kind of is the footprint that MNTGE will be able to leave.
I love that. Great answer. Thank you guys so much.
No,
really appreciate it. Nikki, it's great to talk to you. We have a couple of mutuals even outside of Web3 coming
Amazing.
from the streetwear kind of scene. Franalations is a great example of someone that really embodies what you can do with sort of the idea of collecting and like the resale market. Like a lot of these concepts that we see active streetwear participants participate in all translate into Web3 concepts. If you can understand the idea of like minting or buying at a retail price, and then which translates I guess into minting, and then reselling, which is secondary markets, like these sort of concepts have already been ingrained in people, and it's just about, I think, really finding a way to contextualize and translate that. Just seeing the vast amount of profitability with culture, with even what StockX did in terms of like changing the game with like having a measurable way to scale what a shoe is valued at based on what people, price it to be is like crazy. And I think like the cooler thing here about sort of being in this space is that, Web3 has not only changed lives for artists, it's also, in the bigger scheme, I think, created a new vehicle to quantify culture, which is crazy, or scale culture. Historically, a lot of people that have led trends or started trends have been left out by big corporations that see what you're doing and then just kind of take it and run with it. But I think
that's part of the beauty, I think, of Web3 right now, right? It hasn't been mean, they're trying, but it hasn't been taken over by that corporate regime yet. And the ability to sort of build right now and to celebrate that, this is a moment in time. So hopefully we can kind of really jump on it. Sorry, I didn't cut you off.
No, I appreciate it. I can talk forever, but yeah, I appreciate you guys doing this. You guys are, I think, we're all in like the best space to be in. I love the Futureverse folks. Aaron and Alex are really wonderful people. The entire FLUF world team and communities and the neighboring projects with like Seekers and Party Bear and ASM and ADAM, like all those dudes are, really leading the way in their own respective spaces. So I'm stoked that they're working with you guys. Even before Web3, I heard really good things about, you and a lot of the members involved with MNTGE. So this is super exciting.
I love it. Well, I just followed you on Twitter. So thank you. Thanks for the support. Like, it's exactly the kind of voices that we want to speak to. And I will say just a shout out to Franalations, because I heard, so, a lot of what you said, like, collectors are going to collect, right? And I feel like it's been happening forever. And then with, COVID, you saw this massive growth in trading cards and watches and sneakers, and slowing down a little bit, but I think celebrated also through, you saw this massive movement into NFTs, specifically PFPs and art NFTs, which, I think really helped drive the collector frenzy. And so there's already this massive, there's just so much similarity, this massive bridge there. So how can we continue to evolve?
It's another audience, right? Like that's something that we're always kind of focused on, is like, who out there is interested in this stuff that we can bring on a digital journey? Like, how can we take something that exists as a movement within the meat space and make it relevant in a genuine way within the digital world?
Use that chain to validate it all.
Yeah,
use right. The ledger to validate. It's so perfect.
And MNTGE is like that perfect intersection of a community that already exists out there and a product that actually makes sense. It actually adds value to, being in the digital space because of that storytelling and the provenance. Yeah. Agreed. And Franalations, who you brought up, if you follow his socials, he's like, because there'll be. Oh, sorry, did you lose me?
Did we have any other questions from the community? No? We must be doing something right then.
Well, it's excited to do it. Coming up on the, follow us for, follow our follow the MNTGE Twitter. It's MNTGE MNTGE_IO, and you can follow us. And I know, funny enough, this is another thing where obviously we're as Web3 advocates, we're all very strong Twitter users, but a lot of our storytelling is visual. So building that audience across Instagram and TikTok and I don't know, whatever else is out there, but is also important to us. So on all our platforms, it's MNTGE_IO. I think great place to see some of the content. We want to celebrate all the voices that are people that we've had on our spaces or that, are working with us, who are just really, really, really good people, good stories to tell, and really are for the journey that we're building. So, I encourage everybody to follow along.
Awesome. Well, Aaron seems to keep accidentally rugging himself.
He keeps getting rugged. I keep seeing that. I'm like, oh no.
Exactly. Cool. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you for making the time. I hope that's answered everyone's questions around the nature of the relationship, obviously, between Non-Fungible Labs, FLUF World, and MNTGE. I, for one, am incredibly excited about this project and really looking forward to the rollout of the Mint Pass and the Sean Wotherspoon collection. Any parting thoughts, Nick, Brennan?
No, just like let's go. Let's keep building together. This like I'm telling you, I'm motivated right now. I know it's been a crazy couple weeks and ups and downs, and some of the things that, you know, the value and some of the things we've had is down. But I'm just really inspired that the conversations I had, the communities I saw, the projects that I see are being built. Like, I think it's an amazing time right now. So, you know, just stay the course.
Yeah, we're super excited. I wish I would have changed my avatar to my party bear, but I was too busy. I was too busy working today. No, but we're super excited. We're super excited to be members of this community. We're super excited to see what we can build together. And yeah, this is such an awesome team, and we love what we're creating here, and hopefully everybody else will too.
Yeah, and I will say one thing before we jump. One shout out to you guys, and I've said that a lot, is the AI art around the thingies. That was the first time that I really saw the integration of AI software into art, and now I can't open up my social media without seeing somebody like put in their face with a Fortnite character or like an Amazonian Barbie doll or something. So so I will say that you know, keep staying ahead.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. There's still a lot of exciting stuff to come on the AI front for sure. The thingies rollout is still just in its infancy. Wouldn't you not, just as we say we're wrapping up, 3 people asked to come up and ask questions. Have you guys got a couple minutes, or do you need to?
Yeah, let's do one more, and then we'll if we want to keep vibing, we'll keep vibing. Let's definitely do one more.
All right, cool. Second.
Yeah, how's it going, guys?
Yep. We got there.
Yeah, thanks so much for letting me up. I just had a real quick question. I was wondering, I missed the first part of the space. I don't know if it was covered there, but could you maybe just give a little bit of insight into like the MNTGE mint? If we mint that NFT, what's the immediate, like what is that NFT? Is it like something that's going to then be burned at a later date? Is it like an avatar? Is it like a piece of digital clothing? And then like how does it tie in specifically to FLUF World? Is there anything that can be kind of like discussed or disclosed about that? Yeah, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, well, we this is recorded, so we definitely talked about a lot of the integration into the FLUF World side of it, because I think we got pretty deep there. So I would say best would be recorded. I was just saying on the Mint Pass side of it. So the Mint Pass is the first real introduction to the community. It's a smaller pass priced at what we want to be a premium community. And it will be, you know, in terms of what we have, Sean Wotherspoon, who is coming out with a broad collection. It's going to be access into his collection, as well as continued access into other designers that we're onboarding. So it's essentially a true Mint Pass, where it's access to mint those pieces. And then there will be some, then it's access to a real marketplace with a real product that's being built. And it's also, there'll be some select airdrops. But in terms of, to be transparent up front, this is going to guarantee you access, you know, off the jump to Sean's collection, which will come at the beginning of the year.
Cool. Thank you for the insight. I appreciate it.
No problem. And then I would love, on the FLUF stuff, it's really exciting, but I just want you to listen to it, because if we start again, it will be talking for another hour.
Yeah,
sure. I'll go back and take another listen. Thanks.
Long story short, you know, we're building it in as an interoperable into all of our interoperability around accessory swapping, especially in the in-game environments.
And I will add one other thing. If you don't get the Mint Pass, it's okay, because the broader collections, there would be, you know, we want to continue to onboard people to be able to get those collections. It's just true guaranteed to those collections.
Exactly.
Cool. Listen, thanks guys, appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks.
Cool. All right. Let's see if we do some couple more quick fire questions. Dildo Verde. You there?
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I think my question was very similar. I think some of the community was just seeing it as a pretty high price or high entry. So I think a lot of us were kind of confused what value would be added or what all are we getting for that 0.5 to kind of invest into a higher price mint. But I think you guys kind of covered it with Playboy's question.
Perfect. Easy. All right. One more then. Last request before we wrap this up. Money GCC. You there, mate?
Yeah. Hey, Alex and Nikki. How are you guys today?
Hey.
Good, thanks, mate.
I don't know if it's necessarily a question or a comment. You see, I have this this Arab party bear with a gutra, right? And I'm just wondering if there's gonna be any like Arabic either accessories or vintage stuff, swords or anything to go along with these party bears in the metaverse.
I mean, you bring up a great question. Again, I can't speak directly to the bear side. I think Alex and Aaron on the actual kind of Futureverse side, you could probably talk more about the specific details. But I think the question that you're highlighting is like the kind of feedback of what's exciting. I mean, where can we explore items and elements, whether it's Arabic or some other cultural aesthetic or something? How can we dig into these things? I mean, off the jump, no, we don't have anything specifically built there yet. We're really entering through, I think, a streetwear fashion lens right now. But if you think that there's someone that we should dig into or collaborate with, or we want that kind of feedback and we want to, engage in that conversation. So I would just say jump in the Discord and show us the bear and let us know what kind of an item or a person that represents that, and we would certainly explore it.
I'll definitely throw some stuff into the Discord, Nikki.
To speak to the other side of that, MNTGE as a partnership in this wearables is very much kind of targeting, the premium and vintage aesthetic. But as we get more into the full kind of interoperable game environment, there'll be a whole range for, not first party assets and partnership assets, but also, we want to build in pathways for people to kind of to create their own assets into the world as well that sit within that interoperability framework. So as we continue to build out, 100% we want to bring in as many different cultures as possible. I think, when it comes to building the metaverse, you really need to engage with every kind of nuance and niche of culture that the world has to offer, because that's what brings, the true kind of immersion and the true kind of cultural expression. If the metaverse is just built by a bunch of white men, it's probably not going to be that interesting. So 100% definitely want to kind of open up those doorways as much as possible, and that can happen in a number of forms, from things that are more premium and curated to those that are more kind of community driven and co-created.
Last thing I'll say too to everybody listening is on MNTGE.io. There's a full breakdown of what the Mint Pass gets you. It also has a video around Sean talking about his collection specifically. So feel free to check that out.
Nice one. That seems like a perfect point to wrap this up on. Nick, Brennan, thank you for your time. Aaron, you're already gone, but thank you. And yeah, thank you everyone who tuned in. Thank you to our incredible community. As I said before, if you haven't already, go and jump in the MNTGE Discord. You can find the link in one of the recent announcements in Fluff World. Otherwise, you can just type in discord.gg/MNTGE. We'll see you in there.
Thanks, everybody. Bye, guys.
Thanks very much for watching. If you enjoy this content, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and maybe consider watching one of my other videos. Bunnies up!